We unlearn to learn. This is where we rethink, debate, and learn. Welcome to Omondi TV. Hello guys. Welcome to episode 3 of Omondi TV, guys. You know here, it's getting Messi, it's getting Ronaldo. So guys, we are here again to rethink, debate, and learn. And this is episode 3 of Omondi TV. For the meantime, guys, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks so much for the love so far. Link on my bio from my previous video, and this one is another credible episode. Hope you guys are ready. Before we start, guys, you know the brainstormer of the week. Some phones take no photos, I tell you. Some phones take no photos, I tell you. Tafakari hayo, watu wa Tekno na Itel. Hope merada na hope mulisame. Nothing personal. We are here to rethink on that Itel. So guys, today is going to be another incredible episode. And it's going to be another engaging topic. So guys, without wasting much time, what is our topic of the day? Our topic of the day is this one. Is everyone a fundamentalist? Is everyone a fundamentalist? Now, what is fundamentalism? So guys, by the end of this discussion, I want you to look upon and reflect upon yourself. Are you a fundamentalist? And if you are not, are you planning to become one? And if you are not one, were you once a fundamentalist? So guys, the aim of this discussion is for you to understand what this is all about and how you can apply it in your life, because most of us are suffering from this thing. Now, what is fundamentalism? These are the fundamentals. Not that one, guys. Not that one. This is another one. Now, fundamentalism is a strict adherence to a set of basic principles. It's a strict adherence to a set of basic principles. In that, if you're a fundamentalist, there is no compromise, there is no negotiations, there is no dialogues, but instead, there is withdrawal and there's rejection. In that, if you're a fundamentalist, there are certain things that you believe in, and you don't listen to what other people are saying. You don't listen to other ideas of people. You listen to what you yourself are saying. So, basically, that's what being a fundamentalist is all about. Now, what's the origin? What's the history of fundamentalism? Where did it all begin? Now, fundamentalism began way back in the 1920s. It began way back in the 1920s, and it began in the United States of America, when certain people known as the liberal theologists was a religious movement that came in to aid oppressed people to fight for their political and civic rights. So, fundamentalists came up in a way that to oppose these people. Now, who are the fundamentalists at this particular time? The fundamentalists were the Protestants. Who are the Protestants? The Protestants are those people from the Western religion in that are not involved with the Roman Catholic Church. So, they came in a way to oppose the liberal theologists. They saw the liberal theologists as a wrong movement. They saw it as a wrong movement in that they saw that what liberal theologists were doing was not attributed to the church. They believed that if you're from the church, you're not supposed to fight for political things. You're not supposed to fight for your rights, but you're supposed to respect the doctrines of the church. So that's where the fundamentalism came from. That's where the first fundamentalists came from. So these Protestants were the fundamentalists, and they're the ones who came about with this idea. Now, this is well explained in a book known as The Baptist Examiner. This book is written by an author known as Thomas Paul Simmons of the 1931. The book was published in 1931. It's online, guys. You can go and vindicate all that I'm saying about the history of fundamentalism. After understanding the history, we go to the most exciting and entertaining part. We have the stages of fundamentalism. We have the paradigms of fundamentalism. We have the typologies of fundamentalism. Now, what are the stages of fundamentalism? We have 3 stages. The first stage is the passive fundamentalist. So, guys, under each stage, I'll be explaining each by each so that everyone can understand what I'm saying. We have the passive fundamentalism. Under passive, we have the fundamentalists here who are passive. Now, guys, what is to be passive? To be passive is to have something inside of you without attributing it to any other person. Is to have something in you with no restricting other people. In that, if you're a passive fundamentalist, this thing is inside of you. We have not yet shared with other people. We have not yet shown it to other people, but instead, it's inside of you. So, under passive fundamentalism, what is here? Under passive fundamentalism, we have various features. And under various features, we have various factors. So, guys, don't worry. I'm here to take you slow by slow so that you can understand all of this, so that you can learn, think, and debate. So, under passive, we have feature number one. The first feature of passive fundamentalism is principle of presupposition. Principle of presupposition. What is principle of presupposition? Under principle of presupposition, we have two factors. The first factor is perspective absolutism, and the second factor is immediate inherency. So, guys, let's go slow by slow. I've told you, under passive fundamentalism, we have various features. The first feature is principle of presupposition. Now, what is principle of presupposition? For you to understand the principle of presupposition, we have various factors. The first factor is perspective absolutism, and the second factor is immediate inherency. So, guys, let me explain these factors so that you can understand what principle of presupposition is all about. Now, when you're a passive fundamentalist, and you're at this stage, under principle of presupposition, what happens here? What happens here is this perspective absolutism. What is this? Perspective absolutism is having a perspective that is absolute. What is to be absolute? Something that is absolute is something that is independent and does not want to relate with other things. In that, you see your perspective as being the final thing. Remember, this thing is inside of you yet. You have not yet released it. You are creating it inside of you. So, at this particular point, you see a perspective as being the final product. You see a perspective as being something, as the one which is right. And immediately with this, it emerges to what is known as immediate inherency. What is immediate inherency? Immediate inherency is making this perspective of yours to be seen as something that has no errors and has no fault. That's what's happening here, basically. You create these ideas. For example, if you're a fundamentalist against a particular tribe, or against a particular religion. At this point, you start creating your ideas about that religion or that tribe, and you start coming up with a perspective towards it, and you start seeing your perspective as being right and has no compromise. That is what is happening here, guys. We go into the second feature. Remember, we're still under passive fundamentalist. Now, the second feature is what is known as authoritative derivation. What is authoritative derivation, guys? Under authoritative derivation, we have two factors. The first factor is the factor of indwelling. What is to indwell? To indwell is to be permanently present in someone. Now, under this stage, this perspective that you have, it starts indwelling in you. It starts being part of you. It starts existing in you. Now, after it indwells in you, you go to what is known as the second feature, which is the text seen as an ambiguous one. Now, what is to be ambiguous? To be ambiguous is something that is open to more interpretations. But at this point, you see your text as being unambiguous, in that it cannot be interpreted to many more things, but it can be interpreted by only what you think is right. So this is what happens at this particular time. So guys, let's go slow again. I've told you, under passive fundamentalism, we have various features. The first feature is principle of presupposition, as I've explained, and the second feature is authoritative derivation. Under authoritative derivation, we have the factor of indwelling, and we have the text seen as an ambiguous one. An ambiguous one in that your text cannot be interpreted by anyone, but only by you. It's getting messy. It's getting messy. Guys, still under passive fundamentalism, we have number 3. Now, the feature number 3 is known as implicit verification. What is implicit verification? To amplify. Under implicit verification, we have what is known as narrative correlation, and rhetoric collaboration. Now, guys, what is this? What happens at this stage, guys? Guys, anything that you do not understand or you do not get, or any idea that you have towards fundamentalism, on my comment section, we learn together. Now, under implicit verification, two things happens: rhetoric collaboration and narrative correlation. What is narrative correlation? At this stage, you start forming narratives to correlate with your ideology, guys. Simply as such, you start forming narratives to correlate with the ideology. Now, rhetoric collaboration. What is to be rhetoric? Under rhetoric collaboration, you start forming rhetoric questions to collaborate with the ideas. What are rhetoric questions? Rhetoric questions are those questions that are asked to make a point rather than to get an answer. If a person asks a rhetoric question, he's asking you not to get your answer, but to make a point. He's just asking you to see your point of view. But even if you give him an answer, he already has a preformed answer of him in his mind, in that your answer cannot change what he thinks. So a rhetoric question, you ask it to prove a point, not to get an answer, because the answer is already preformed. So guys, that is what basically happens under passive fundamentalism. So guys, a quick view. I told you, under passive, we have various features. The feature number one is principle of presupposition, as I've explained. The second feature is authoritative derivation, and the third feature is implicit verification. On to number two, the second stage of fundamentalism, or the second phase, or the second typology. We have what is known as assertive fundamentalism. So guys, first, what is to be assertive? To be assertive is to be forceful and confident on your idea, is to take a stand on your idea. If a person says you're an assertive person, you are so confident, you take your stand on idea. So remember guys, after the passive fundamentalism, you are creating it inside of you. Now, at assertive now, you start now releasing it. You start now taking your stand. You start now showing your reaction. So what happens here, guys? Here also, we have various features. The first feature is known as epistemological construction. Now, what is this, guys? Under epistemological construction, we have various features. We have two features. The first feature, hard factualism, and the second feature is applied necessity. I'll go slow, guys. What is epistemological construction? First, what is epistemology? Epistemology is the theory of knowledge in relation to creating words. So at this particular point, you start creating words for your knowledge. That's why it's known as hard factualism. What is factualism? Factualism is the adherence to facts. It's the concentration to facts. So at this particular point, you start forming your own knowledge on that ideology that you have. You start forming your knowledge on that what you think is right. And you start forming your own words. Are you getting my point, guys? For example, if you hate a particular religion or a tribe, at this particular point now, you start forming knowledge based on you, on what to think of them. And you start forming facts on you. And these facts are hard. That's why they're known as hard factualism. That is what is happening here, guys. And you apply them whenever necessary. That's why it is applied necessity. That is the second feature of it. So, guys, under epistemological construction, we have hard factualism and we have applied necessity, as I've explained. Hard factualism is the adherence to facts, and you use them, you apply them whenever necessary. That's why it's known as applied necessity. Now, what is the second feature of assertive fundamentalism? The second feature is what is known as emergence of a distinctive structure. Emergence of a distinctive structure. What is this, guys? After you've already formed this knowledge, you have already formed these facts, you have already taken this stand, you will try to look for a community that will identify with your ideology. It normally happens to most of us. If you have an idea on something, if you heard something, it reaches a particular point where you want to find people who will relate with your idea. That is what is happening here, guys. Emergence of a distinctive structure. You try to find a community that is familiar with your idea. And not only being familiar, but a community that can relate with the idea. In that, if you hate a particular tribe or you hate a particular religion, you try to find people who hate the religion with you. That's what is happening here, guys. You are forming a community, as simple as such. After that, we go to the third feature, guys. The third feature of assertive fundamentalism. And here we have what is known as ideological hardening. Now, what is ideological hardening? Now, here, the fundamentalist tries to be smart. And what happens here? What happens here, we normally experience it day in, day out. What happens here, the fundamentalist tries to be inclusive, but instead he is exclusive. Am I making sense? No, maybe I'm not making sense. But for me not to make sense, then there is a sense on which I'm trying to make. Guys, I'll explain. Here the fundamentalist tries to be, what is to be inclusive, guys? To be inclusive is to be comprehensive. What is to be comprehensive? To be comprehensive is to include everyone. Are you getting my point? What is to be exclusive? Simply, the opposite of inclusive. To exclusive is to include a particular section and not to include everyone. As simple as such. So at this particular point, remember guys, fundamentalists are always exclusive. They don't include everyone because they think what they think is right. So at this particular point, the fundamentalists try to pretend like they're including everyone, but instead they're not including everyone. For example, I'll give an example of a nation maybe. You find that there is a nation and there is a president. And this president tells the people that the government is for everyone. But instead, you see a cabinet of a particular tribe. You see the principal secretaries of a particular tribe. You see development in particular sections, not all sections. But when the president is addressing the whole nations, he says the government is inclusive, in that there is inclusivity. But when you see the actions, you see exclusivity. As simple as such. So, such a thing is what happens at this stage. The fundamentalist tries to show that his idea is for everyone, yet it's not for everyone. Are you getting my point, guys? He tries to be one among many, but actually he wants to be one leading the many. So, guys, that is what is happening here. That's why it's known as ideological hardening. He's hardening his idea. The feature number 4 of assertive fundamentalism is what is known as the hardline point. What is the hardline point? The hardline point, here now, the fundamentalist starts being with them. It starts having negative values. Remember, guys, all that I've explained before reaching here is forming things. Is forming and avoiding such things, but the negativity aspect has not yet emerged. Now, at this point, the negativity part is emerging. The hatred part is emerging. So that's why it's known as the hardline point. Like, he starts forming negativity statements against this ideology. So guys, that is what is happening here. On to the last typology of fundamentalist. Now, this is the most dangerous state of being a fundamentalist. Okay, this is the most dangerous. As per me, hope you guys, after I finish this, you will choose which is the most dangerous as per you. So as per me, this is the most dangerous. It's known as impositional fundamentalism. What is impositional? Impositional, just as it says, is to impose, to do it now, to take an action. Now, guys, under impositional fundamentalism is where now the fundamentalist takes an action of what it thinks. Remember, under passive, it was inside of you. Under assertive, you have taken a stand. Now, under imposition, you are taking an action against this idea that you have. So, guys, under impositional fundamentalism, we have various features. The first feature is discriminatory application value. Discriminatory application value. Now, what is the discrimination application value? Remember, guys, the last feature of assertive fundamentalism was the hardline point. Under the hardline point, there was the negative values forming. So, under discriminatory value application, it extends it. It extends the hardline point. So here, there is the forming of the condemnatory stance. You start condemning. So if you want a particular tribe, now you start hating them. You start seeing them as enemies. You start seeing them as thieves. You start seeing them as barbaric people at this particular point. And if it's religion, for example, you start labeling names. For example, saying it is either satanic or demonic. You start condemning it. That is what is happening here under discriminatory application value. Now, we have the second feature. The second feature is claiming of justification for both the ideology and the action it applies. Claiming of justification for both the ideology and the action it applies. Guys, hope I'm not speaking French. What does this mean? This basically means, at this particular point, now, remember, the fundamentalist has already condemned this thing. He already doesn't want this thing. Now, what happens here is not looking for bodies on ways to fight this thing. And that is the stage where you will see people going for strikes, opposing a particular thing, going to the government, going to the court. For example, let me use this example. You normally see the LGBTQ drama, for example, for the people who don't want to identify with it, for example. You see them at this particular time. Such people have gone to the courts to oppose it, gone to the road to oppose it, looking for sanctions. And this particular point, you see as people do not have rights. You start fighting their rights. You start seeing what you have as being right and what they think as not being right. So guys, that is what happens basically here. And this one leads us to the last feature of impositional fundamentalists. And what is here, guys, it was known as enacted violence. Now, what is enacted violence? Enacted violence is being an extremist. What is being an extremist? Now, this is where now you take your stand and you decide to be a terrorist. What is to be a terrorist? This is now the point where you decide to kill. You decide to reject. You decide to torture. This is at a particular point you'll hear people are being killed because of what they wanted. So they're killed by fundamentalists. You see people being killed, being tortured. So at this particular point, the fundamentalist takes the actions of what he thinks is right by either killing, torturing, taking to jail, as simple as such. So guys, by this, are you a fundamentalist? And if you are, at which stage are you? And are you willing to overcome it? Now, what is the solution? What is the solution of dealing with fundamentalists? What is the solution of doing away with fundamentalism? Just simple, guys. Having the spirit of tolerance. Having the spirit of otherness. Can you accommodate other people's views? Can you accommodate other people's ideologies? Can you be open-minded? Can you be a liberal person? I know there's at a particular point you must take your principle and stand on a particular thing, which is not bad. But who say that you are always correct? Who say that your idea is always the final verdict? Can't you listen to other people's ideas? Don't other people have their own rights? Are they supposed not to be listened to? So guys, that was the episode of the day, episode 3, guys. For the meantime, hit the notification button, comment, like, share, and subscribe, guys. Tell me what you think on fundamentalism. I'm always here to rethink, debate, and learn. Tell me those ideas that you think, those questions that you have, guys. On to episode 4. It will be another messy episode. See you, guys. Adios, 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 adios.